Chapter 497.9, Side Story 3 Part 2. The Flame Mountain. In the southern desert region of Tibet. In a place full of sand where the view was blurred by heat haze, a golden-haired woman of unparalleled beauty with 9 golden tails was glaring at something with a sweat-soaked face. Around her, about 30 giant spirit soldiers with pure white forms lacking facial features surrounded her. Of course, if you counted the spirit soldiers lying on the ground, there would be close to 100. However, except for the 30, none of the spirit soldiers were in their complete form. Damn it! A harsh sound erupted from the mouth of the golden-haired beauty, or rather the white-faced king, the golden nine-tailed fox. She was genuinely annoyed. She had been fighting these things for over half a month now, but as soon as she knocked them down, they would return to their original state within half an incense stick's time, resulting in an endless battle. 2 spirit soldiers rushed towards her simultaneously. In response, light orbs formed on 2 of her 9 tails, which then transformed into beams of light that pierced through the chests and heads of the 2 spirit soldiers. Boom, boom. As the 2 spirit soldiers fell, the others rushed in as if they had been waiting. Seeing this, the golden nine-tailed fox spun her body and scattered her tail hairs imbued with demonic power towards the spirit soldiers. Papapapapapak. As if familiar with her attack, the spirit soldiers in the front line raised shields to block this while charging forward, and the other spirit soldiers behind them rotated their spears to create sharp whirlwinds and attacked her. Tithich. The golden nine-tailed fox hurriedly struck the ground with her palm. The surrounding sand surged like waves, blocking the whirling spears of the spirit soldiers. Their spears were no ordinary force. When they collided with the wave-like sand, sparks flew everywhere due to the friction. Eventually, their spears tried to pierce through the sand. At this, the golden nine-tailed fox, thinking this wouldn't do, attempted to manifest her true form. But then, boom, the light that had been coloring her body golden suddenly disappeared, and her demonic power was rapidly depleted. At this strange phenomenon, she abandoned manifesting her true form and used her 9 tails to wrap around the spears thrusting towards her, then slammed them down. Quack 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 quang. The bodies of the spirit soldiers, slammed to the ground multiple times along with their spears, went limp. However, she couldn't be happy at all about their state. This is getting ridiculous. This was because she could see other spirit soldiers who had been lying down behind them getting up, completely fine. The problem was their infinite recovery. She wanted to turn them to dust and completely annihilate them, but whenever she tried to do something that required a lot of demonic power or tried to change into her true form, her demonic power would be rapidly depleted. The reason for this was due to this unknown thing imprisoning her. Walls so transparent that even her demon eye couldn't perceive them. This seemed to be a strange formation created by the general-like figure with a strong build who had appeared before her half a month ago. He held a huge sword in his right hand and a small pagoda in his left, and as soon as he saw her he immediately said, "So you're the golden nine-tailed fox." What? She had disguised herself using transformation techniques and was even concealing her demonic power, but this unknown person who recognized her at once made her feel strongly wary, and she tried to subdue him in one breath. However, not only did he block her attack, but when he raised his hand holding the pagoda, that small thing suddenly grew larger, then disassembled and trapped her like building walls around her. And at some point the walls trapping her became transparent, and these giant spirit soldiers appeared. If only my demonic power wasn't being absorbed, I could return to my true form. The problem was that she couldn't do that. She had managed to hold out somehow because she had mastered methods to recover her demonic power on her own, besides through terror and fear, but it was a vicious cycle. The spirit soldiers were endlessly recovering and didn't tire, while she was gradually becoming exhausted. She needed to find some way out. Meanwhile, unseen by her, there were 2 figures watching this from about 30 jang away. One was the general-like figure with a strong build who had trapped her here, and the other was someone wrapped in black clothes, their face barely visible. The general-like figure spoke to the black-clothed being beside him. "As you can see, she's no ordinary being." "It seems so. She's been fighting with the giant spirit soldiers for over half a month while trapped in the pagoda, and her spirit still hasn't died. I was planning to drag her away after depleting her demonic power to some extent, but it looks like it will take more time." "Didn't you intervene directly?" "Do you think I didn't?" As he said this, the general-like figure showed his left arm. The armor on his left arm was broken, and his clothes were stained with blood, with even a splint applied. My arm was broken after just a few exchanges. I didn't know there was still an Imi Manjiang with this level of power left in the mortal world. Even in the world before heroes and immortals departed, she was a being who caused as much uproar as that stone monkey. It couldn't be easy. Still, she couldn't be as bad as that stone monkey. That was the worst. The general-like figure clicked his tongue and shook his head as if he didn't even want to recall it. To him, the black-clothed being smirked and said, "Does it still make your teeth chatter? You think only my teeth would chatter? How could I forget the ordeal from back then? Anyway, what's important isn't the past. If we don't retrieve it quickly, an even greater calamity will occur. How could I not know? Keep tracking it and somehow subdue that fox inside. She'll be very useful." The Flame Mountain in Xinjiang. Vast ridges that looked as if they were made of hardened piles of sand stretched out. This place was called the Flame Mountain because in ancient times, a spark that fell from the sky caused a forest fire that wouldn't extinguish. The flames that wouldn't go out even when it rained were finally consumed by a sudden gale one day. After that, the Flame Mountain became a bare mountain where not even a blade of grass would grow. Not far from this Flame Mountain, there exists a place called Mount Suiyun. Unlike the Flame Mountain, which was a barren rocky mountain due to the aftermath of the flames, Mount Suiyun was full of vegetation and animals, and looked as if people could pass through, but in reality, it was rarely visited by humans. This was due to the strange rumors that there had been Imi Manjiang that ate people on Mount Suiyun since ancient times. In fact, it was hard to consider these just strange rumors. This was because countless people who had entered Mount Suiyun in the past had gone missing. As a result, Mount Suiyun became a forbidden mountain where people couldn't enter, and it grew more gloomy and desolate as days passed. In the deepest part of this Mount Suiyun, deep within that incredibly dark place, there was a cave. Near the entrance wall of the cave it was engraved, Plantain Leaf Cave. It seemed to be the name given to the cave, and from the darkness where it seemed there wouldn't be a single human presence, boisterous sounds suddenly began to be heard. It was incredibly noisy, as if a feast was taking place, and as one went further inside, a huge cavern appeared, and within it stood a massive structure reminiscent of a fortress. Thud thud. And around it, large green monsters that looked like they were guarding it were walking around here and there, carrying huge wooden clubs. Inside the structure, red curtains were hanging here and there, and pillars were supporting the ceiling, revealing a wide hall. Kikikik. Quah. Crackle. Surprisingly, inside were grotesque Imi Manjiang, numbering over 300 individuals. And each one of them had an extraordinary aura, seeming to be Imi Manjiang of considerable rank. Among the Imi Manjiang, there were also those in human form, and they were excitedly chattering about something that seemed to please them greatly. Gah! Our young master has returned. What a joyous occasion this is. Damn, the days of hiding from human eyes are finally over. Once our young master breaks Great Strength King's seal, the era of humans will end and our world will come again. Let's bring humans and brew wine with their fresh blood, and hold a feast for 3 days and nights. Kik. That's a great idea. Thud. At the sound that strongly shook the floor, the gazes of the noisily chattering Imi Manjiang all turned towards the highest seat in the hall. On the highest seat sat a beautiful noble lady wearing a green skirt and a lavish purple top. Despite her appearance that captivated attention and her fairy-like adornments, the woman with somewhat fierce eyes had the spirit of a female warrior. Strangely, the Imi Manjiang who had been so excited and noisy were now watching her carefully. The woman's voice echoed through the now quiet hall. "Is this all that have gathered?" At her question, an Imi Manjiang in human form with owl-like whiskers and wings, who was below the highest seat's platform, approached, paid his respects and said, "Please forgive us, Iron Fan Immortal." "Forgive? Ha! It's laughable that you find this situation amusing. When he was ruling the world, thousands and tens of thousands gathered to follow him, but how pathetic is this?" The atmosphere became not just solemn but frigid. The woman called the Iron Fan Immortal was not satisfied with this situation. Despite announcing that her beloved child had returned and her husband's revival was not far off, she was rather angry that only this many had gathered. No matter how much things had changed from the past, where on earth were all those numerous subordinates of his, not gathering? They've lost their fear because he was sealed. At this point she thought that when her husband was freed from the seal he should discipline them. At that moment, an Imi Manjiang in human form with long gray hair and narrow eyes carefully spoke up. Iron Fan Immortal. The kindred gathered here are all those in Xinjiang. So you're saying no one outside of Xinjiang responded to my call? That's not it. If that's not it, what are you trying to say? I had never left Xinjiang before, so I didn't know, but I recently visited Qinghai province and found that our kindred have almost disappeared. Our kindred have almost disappeared? Yes. So I inquired about it, and it seems there was a great war near the southern part of the Central Plains a year ago. It said that many of our kindred were annihilated then. Are you talking about when he briefly awakened? It seems so. How massive a war could it have been for so many of our kindred to be annihilated in a battle with mere humans? I don't know the details. What's certain is that he who had just been freed from the seal participated in that war, and as you know, the white-faced king, Kwang, that damn fox bitch. With a shrill voice, at just one gesture from her, a large hole appeared in the floor of the hall. She too knew this from what she had heard from that child. That fox bitch had turned her husband into a killing stone. He could never forgive this. When my red child awakens him and brings him back, I will personally peel off that fox bitch's flesh bit by bit and gnaw even her bones. She was firmly determined for that day. But it was at that moment. Crackle. The pillars supporting the hall shook, and from above, dust fell along with cracks forming in the ceiling and stone fragments rained down. At this, the Imi Manjiang looked at her with eyes full of fear. One of the Iron Fan Immortal's eyebrows raised. Although she had expressed great anger, she hadn't released any demonic power just now. So what on earth was happening? At that moment, Papapapapak, an Imi Manjiang in the form of a horned wolf walking on all fours rushed into the hall and hurriedly reported to her. Iron Fan Immortal. Right now, an unidentified human has appeared outside the banana leaf cave and is indiscriminately killing our kindred. What? Have humans brought an army? And no. There's only one human. One. What nonsense is this now? Is he saying that just one human has appeared, entered Mount Suiyun and is causing havoc? Even if the kindred outside were somewhat inferior in rank, they weren't weak enough to be defeated by a mere human. Could it be that not an ordinary human but an ancient immortal has appeared? No. That can't be. The immortals left the world long ago and should no longer be able to intervene in mortal affairs. It was at that moment. Kwang. With a huge boom from the entrance of the hall, one of the large green monsters flew in and was embedded into the floor. At this sight, the wolf-formed Imi Manjiang muttered with a bewildered expression. Huh. He's already come this far? It was too fast even for being fast. There were dozens of green monsters guarding just the entrance of the banana leaf cave. Thud thud. Then they saw someone walking in from the entrance. It was a beautiful human with an extraordinary aura. A huge bear-formed Imi Manjiang at the entrance, with power reaching that of a demonic beast, roared and charged towards that being. Kur. How dare a mere human enter here so brazenly? Kukukukukukung. But at that very moment, the being walking forward casually waved his hand to the side as if annoyed. Then surprisingly the charging bear-formed Imi Manjiang, as if it had hit something invisible, pang, pong, was flung sideways and smashed into the hall wall. At this sight, silence fell over the hall for a moment. What on earth just happened? As they were surprised, the beautiful human who had sent the demonic beast-level Imi Manjiang flying with just a wave of his hand spoke in a dry voice. Who is Red Boy? The beautiful human was none other than the Heavenly Demon. Chapter 497.10, Side Story 3 Part 3. The Flame Mountain, 3. The Heavenly Demon suddenly appeared in the great hall of the plantain leaf cave. For a moment, silence fell due to his incomprehensible strength that was hard to believe was human. However, it didn't last long. Who is Red Boy? Boom. As soon as that question ended, the Iron Fan Immortal, who had been sitting on the stone throne at the highest seat, stood up abruptly and shouted. Who are you? She had already been wary of the Heavenly Demon who appeared suddenly. But when the first words out of his mouth were asking about her child, she began to suspect he might be an immortal. I asked first. Still in a dry voice. But the content was so arrogant that the Iron Fan Immortal felt anger surging up in an instant. At this she gave an order. Make that insolent fool kneel before me immediately. As soon as her order fell, the hall that had been filled with silence became noisy with roars. Quirr. Crackle. Quaw. The Imi Manjiang, who roared as if to raise their morale, all charged towards the heavenly demon at once, exuding sharp claws and energy imbued with demonic power. Each was a huge demonic beast over 10 chi, tall, and their momentum was so fierce that ordinary people would be frozen in fear or wet themselves, but the heavenly demon's expression remained utterly calm. Kukukukukukung. The heavenly demon, watching them charge fiercely, slightly lifted his foot and then stepped down towards the ground. At that moment, a wave-like ripple spread out from where he stepped. What happened next was astonishing. The Imi Manjiang, who had been charging up to close range, suddenly stopped as if they had hit something. What? But that wasn't the end of it. The stopped Imi Manjiang started convulsing on the spot, then foamed at the mouth and collapsed. Thud thud. Thud. Seeing dozens of Imi Manjiang of at least demonic beast rank or higher fall without being able to do anything, the Iron Fan immortal who was watching this felt her eye corners tremble. What on earth did he do? Why did they collapse like that when he didn't do anything? As she wondered, he seemed to have learned some strange technique. But such things don't work on me. At that moment, a huge Imi Manjiang with the face of a hippopotamus about 20 jang tall and 4 arms leaped over the fallen Imi Manjiang towards the heavenly demon, swinging the spiked clubs in all its hands simultaneously. Its momentum was so fierce that the sound of air being torn could be heard along with pressure waves that shook the surroundings. However, swish. As the heavenly demon casually waved his hand. Whack. The body of the hippopotamus-headed Imi Manjiang shot upwards and pierced through the ceiling of the great hall. Quack-quack-quang. The Imi Manjiang, with its upper body stuck, kicked its legs a few times before going limp. How can this be? What on earth did he do? At this sight, the other Imi Manjiang of demonic beast rank who were about to charge at the heavenly demon stopped and hesitated. At that moment, an Imi Manjiang in human form with owl-like whiskers and wings stepped forward and spoke. You're no ordinary human. It's been a long time since the ancient immortals that someone could handle our kindred so easily with just overwhelming energy. Thing. With those words, the owl-whiskered Imi Manjiang folded its wings and drew a large hunting knife from its waist. As he stepped forward, the Imi Manjiang cheered with raised morale. Wariya. Lord Hyochiga has stepped forward. To think we'd get to see one of the Iron Fan Immortals' 3 heroes take action. Spirit Beast Hyochi. There are ranks even among Imi Manjiang. Starting from the lowest Fierce Beast, there are Monstrous Beast, Demonic Beast, and Diabolic Beast. And though few in number, there are Spirit Beasts whose power is said to be a disaster itself. Spirit Beast Hyochi was an owl Imi Manjiang that had lived for over thousands of years. It was a being on a completely different level from ordinary Imi Manjiang. The corners of the Iron Fan Immortal's mouth rose at the tremendous demonic power rising from Hyochi's body. It's been a while since I'll get to see Hyochi's demonic blade technique, too. I don't know what he is, but the 3 heroes have faced even the ancient immortals. Though not reaching the 6 demons who are said to be infinitely close to divine beasts, the power of upper-ranked spirit beasts among Imi Manjiang is enough to blow away an entire mountain. Now that Spirit Beast Hyochi has stepped forward, even that guy will have to be tense. Thud thud. The heavenly demon, watching Spirit Beast Hyochi approach, opened his mouth. If you're in human form, we should be able to communicate at least. Do you think communication is possible after what you've done? Then let this be a warning. Warning? Huh. Even if you're Imi Manjiang, to me there's no difference in weight between you and humans or animals. So if you don't want unnecessary sacrifices, just hand over Red Boy. Papapapak. It was at that moment. As soon as the heavenly demon's words ended, another Imi Manjiang in human form near the stone throne leaped over 20 jang in one step and shouted. How dare an arrogant human demand we hand someone over? I'll make you pay for casually mentioning our young master's name. Ooh. Lord Wang He has also stepped forward. That guy has dug his own grave. Spirit Beast Wang He, 3. It had layered large eyes and a split jaw in the hideous form of pincers. Born in a swamp where millions of locusts died, it was one of the Iron Fan Immortals' 3 heroes and an Imi Manjiang known as second only to Great Strength King in pure strength, with tremendous kicking power. Of course, the difference was quite large, but it was said to be able to split a small flowing river in an instant with just one kick. Gugu. 2 spirit beasts approaching while exuding suffocating demonic power. Despite their tremendous pressure, the heavenly demon, still showing no change in expression, opened his mouth. That previous offer was quite merciful. What are you, Bab? Snap. Poop. Spirit beast Wang He's layered eyes trembled. This was because the heavenly demon, who had been about 15 steps away until just now, had suddenly approached and was gripping its neck. This bastard. Bulge. After a moment of surprise, Spirit beast Wang He's thigh muscles swelled greatly in anger. The power bursting from its thighs and calves, which had thickened like tree trunks, was enough to split a river, and it flew towards the heavenly demon's head. Pong. Quack-quack-quack-quang. The moment the kick connected, the ground on the opposite side of where the head was destroyed in a fan shape due to the force of the impact. Naturally, they thought his head would have been blown away, but this crazy. His calf was caught in the heavenly demon's left hand. The gripping strength was so strong that his hand was digging into the calf that he prided as being harder than steel. Crunch. Cuff. The heavenly demon spoke indifferently to him as he writhed in pain. I didn't bring my wife here. Do you know what that means? Who? What on earth are you? It means I don't care if this place is dyed entirely in blood. Flinch. For a moment, Spirit beast Wang He felt chills all over his body at the tremendous killing intent flowing from the heavenly demon's voice. Is this really killing intent that can be felt from a human? But at that very moment, let go of that hand. Swoosh. Spirit beast Hiochi, appearing from the right side, swung his large hunting knife to cut off the heavenly demon's right arm that was gripping Spirit beast Wang He's neck. However, before that could happen, the heavenly demon twisted Spirit beast Wang He's body to the right and chop. Kaok. The hunting knife ended up digging into Spirit beast Wang He's shoulder instead. Oh no. Spirit beast Hiochi hurriedly tried to control his demonic power and pull the hunting knife out of Spirit beast Wang He's shoulder, but before he could do so, something struck his face. Pong. Quang. This caused Spirit beast Hiochi's body to be flung backwards. The force was so strong that Spirit beast Hiochi rolled over 20 jang, smashing the floor and couldn't stop. Cuff. Hup. What stopped him was the narrow-eyed, long gray-haired Imi Manjiang in human form who was near the stone throne. The gray-haired Imi Manjiang who stepped forward to prevent him from flying to the throne caught Spirit beast Hiochi's body, but swish. He was pushed back, splitting the floor due to the force of the impact. Quite sturdy. The heavenly demon threw down something he was holding onto the floor. Thud chop. Kukakakakak. Green blood splattered. The thing that had hit Spirit beast Hiochi's face was none other than Spirit beast Wang He's torn-off thigh. Spirit beast Wang He, whose thigh had been torn off, screamed, unable to bear the pain. Kukakakakak. Noisy. Caw. You bastard. Spirit beast Wang He finally tried to manifest his true form in anger. Just as his body was about to be dyed in green light. Crunch. The heavenly demon casually tore off his neck. The Imi Manjiang watching this were left speechless at what happened in an instant. The head of Spirit beast Wang He, who met his death with his neck torn off in human form without even being able to manifest his true form. That head was in the heavenly demon's palm. How could Lord Wang He fall so easily? Is this guy really human? The humans they knew were beings with clear limitations. But to easily kill a spirit beast, considered the highest rank even among Imi Manjiang, this completely transcended the category of humans. No, could he really be an ancient immortal? Crack. At that moment the sound of something breaking was heard. The gazes of the Imi Manjiang all turned towards that place. Tremble. They saw the Iron Fan immortal trembling while gripping the broken armrest of the stone throne. With a reddened face and heat emanating even from her eyes, she stood up from her seat. How dare he? Who would have thought that one of her 3 heroes, who were like her limbs and among the few who survived the war with the ancient immortals, would die so easily? Seeing her angry appearance, the faces of the nearby Imi Manjiang turned pale. Though called the Iron Fan immortal, her true name was Rakshasi or Nakayeo, a great spirit beast, comparable to those with the title of 6 demons. After the Great Strength King was sealed, she had quietly gone into seclusion, but if she moved, she too was an Imi Manjiang that could be called a great calamity for the Central Plains. It would be difficult to handle if someone like her became angry. Iron Fan immortal, please calm down. The narrow-eyed, long gray-haired Imi Manjiang in human form tried to stop her. This was because if she lost her reason and went berserk in anger, even the surrounding Imimanjiang could be swept up and endangered. Are you telling me to calm down now? It was at that moment. A blurry shadow deepened, and suddenly the heavenly demon had approached in front of her. You bastard! The Iron Fan Immortal, who had been barely suppressing her anger knowing better than anyone the repercussions her fury would cause, finally couldn't hold back and reached out her heated hand towards the heavenly demon. However, before that hand could reach him, her wrist was caught by the heavenly demon. The Iron Fan Immortal's eyes trembled. The heat emanating from her in her anger was comparable to the heat of lava. Cheek. In fact, the heat coming from her hand was rapidly heating up the surroundings. Yet this man before her was grasping it without any problem. The only ones capable of such a feat were her husband Great Strength King and her child Red Boy. Chapter 497.11, Side Story 3 Part 4. The Flame Mountain. Sizzle. Heavenly Demon casually held Iron Fan Immortal's wrist, which was burning hot. Feeling her pride wounded, Iron Fan Immortal tried to increase the heat even more to force him to let go. The heat was so intense that the stone throne and surroundings began to melt, causing nearby lesser demons to retreat in panic. Yet Heavenly Demon remained expressionless, seemingly unaffected by the heat. What the hell is this guy? Surprised by his unexpected reaction, Iron Fan Immortal stared at Heavenly Demon as he spoke. Are you Hong Heoan's mother? Who the hell are you? Why are you looking for my child? Like any parent, she fiercely loved her child. So when Heavenly Demon mentioned Hong Hei, her face twisted into a fierce expression befitting her name as a Rakshasa woman. Of course, Heavenly Demon didn't care about this at all. Where is Hong Hei? You bastard! Iron Fan Immortal's anger rose at Heavenly Demon's arrogant attitude, completely ignoring her question and only asking about Hong Hei. She no longer held back and revealed her true power. I'll kill you. Boom. As soon as she finished speaking, something erupted from the heated floor. It was lava. The lava that burst forth over 10 jang wide swallowed them up in an instant, then pierced through the ceiling of the Great Hall and even through the cave of Plantain Leaf Peak as it rose. Boom 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 boom. This is bad. Iron Fan Immortal has finally gone berserk. Everyone evacuate the hall. The lesser demons fled the hall building in a panic at this sight. Once Iron Fan Immortal, a great spirit beast on par with the 6 demons, went berserk, the collapse of the hall and cave was all but certain. If it just collapsed, it wouldn't be a big problem for the high-ranking lesser demons. But if she went berserk, the surrounding area would be covered in lava. However, whoosh. The fleeing lesser demons stopped in their tracks. The lava that they thought would surely consume the entire hall was suddenly subsiding. Then, as the lava settled, 2 figures emerged along with the smoke. They were Heavenly Demon and Iron Fan Immortal. But the lesser demons couldn't hide their bewilderment at this sight. This was because Iron Fan Immortal could be seen kneeling on one knee, her captured wrist bent painfully. Arg. Ugh. Black veins like tree roots were spreading from her hand that had been glowing red, due to the invasion of demonic energy. It wasn't just demonic energy that had invaded internally. A blade-like sword energy was cutting through each nerve, causing pain so severe that even Iron Fan Immortal, who had lived for thousands of years, could barely endure it. Seeing her convulsing as if electrocuted, some of the lesser demons couldn't stand by and tried to rush in. Iron Fan Immortal let go of her hand, but Iron Fan Immortal gestured for them not to come, so they had to stop midway. How? Iron Fan Immortal shook her head painfully at their anxious looks. Yo! If they had rushed in out of loyalty to help her, they would have been instantly annihilated by this man's hand. Convulsing from the demonic energy and sword energy invading her body, she looked up at Heavenly Demon. His eyes were still utterly indifferent. Gasp. That made her even more terrified. Just what is this guy's identity? No matter how she looked at him, he wasn't one of their kind. But he's too strong. As someone who had directly experienced the ancient immortals long ago, she knew most beings, but she had never seen anyone with this kind of power. Even her husband couldn't easily subdue her when she went berserk without transforming into her true form or using the great demon-subduing treasure, the Plantain Leaf Fan. Yet this man was effortlessly suppressing her. He didn't even seem to be using his full strength. It's like looking at that stone monkey bastard. Overwhelming strength. She had felt that from the stone monkey Sun Wukong. A monster that even the great strength king, considered the strongest of the 6 demons, couldn't handle. A being born from the convergence of all the energies of heaven and earth. Though the nature of their power was different, this was the first time since then that she had felt such pressure from someone. Haha. Just what are you? I've never heard of a being like you in thousands of years. For a moment her eyes met heavenly demons. In that split second something pierced her mind and she saw a huge avatar of black flames before her eyes. Her whole body trembled at the dark flames that seemed deeper than the abyss. What the hell is this? How can something like this be inside a human form? I am Heavenly Demon. I rule over all 10,000 demons, and am the black flames darker than the abyss. You, just what are you? This is my final act of mercy. If you bring Hong Hei and hand over what's mine, I'll spare your life and your child's. What does he want Hong Hei to hand over? Could he be talking about him who was said to be sealed by the killing stone? Then does this guy have some connection to the white-faced king? What's your relationship with the white-faced king? You don't have the right to ask me questions. If you don't accept the mercy given, you'll only suffer the consequences. Shut up. Who are you to tell me and my child what to do with him? Heavenly Demon's eyes turned cold at her outburst. He had tried to instill fear in her with overwhelming pressure to make her do as he wanted, but befitting someone who had lived for thousands of years, she had strong mental fortitude. Moreover, perhaps due to her maternal love for her child, she was fiercely resisting instead. Though his child wasn't born yet, Heavenly Demon could somewhat understand her emotional turmoil as a parent with a child. But then her entire body except for the wrist directly invaded by his demonic energy began to glow red as heat surged. Sizzle. Neither he nor my child can be touched. Snap. With that cry, Iron Fan Immortal grabbed Heavenly Demon's legs and hugged him tightly. It wasn't just heat that was surging rapidly. It was demonic power. The fact that it was rising even higher than her original demonic power meant she was converting all of her life force into demonic power. Iron Fan Immortal, you can't. Realizing that Iron Fan Immortal was trying to sacrifice herself in a mutual destruction technique, one of the 3 heroes, the gray-haired Spirit King Ash-faced Demon, flew towards her to try and stop her. Whoosh. Ah. But before he could approach, a curtain of red heat blocked him, preventing him from getting closer. This was a wall created by Iron Fan Immortal. Unlike when she went berserk, she was now only thinking of killing the opponent before her, so she made this choice to prevent her subordinate lesser demons from being harmed. Of course, this was also to concentrate all the heat in one place to double its power. Iron Fan Immortal spoke in a meaningful voice. Let's die together in heat hotter than lava. A sacrifice for your kin? Even if the Heavenly Emperor came, he couldn't touch my child. Crack. Her skin, transformed like lava, split open and red light poured out. It looked like it would burst at any moment. But then, snap. Heavenly Demon grabbed Iron Fan Immortal's face with his palm as she clung to his legs. Iron Fan Immortal sneered and shouted. It's useless. This is heat from burning all of my demonic power. No one can extinguish. Whoosh. Before she could finish speaking, the blazing heat from her surging demonic power began to be rapidly absorbed into Heavenly Demon's palm. No. Just as she was about to explode, the heat rapidly drained away, and she couldn't hide her bewilderment. No. No. Sensing something was wrong, she tried to force herself to explode in this state. However, whoosh. At that moment, her brain was severely shaken by the vibrations coming through Heavenly Demon's palm, and she lost consciousness. Not missing this chance, Heavenly Demon absorbed all the heat from her body. The absorbed heat was indeed beyond imagination. Hot. Since this wasn't heat that could be converted into energy within the body. Snap. He raised his hand and released all the heat. Boom. The lava-like heat erupting from Heavenly Demon's hand pierced through Plantain Leaf Peak, even destroying Tsuyun Mountain as it soared high into the sky. Chongryong, watching this from a mountaintop not far from Tsuyun Mountain, smirked. So much for ending it quietly. Boom 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 boom. Seeing that red pillar of heat soaring into the sky after smashing a whole mountain, it seemed he was really making a mess. He had some idea, since she was said to be a great spirit beast on par with the 6 demons. That it wouldn't end quietly, that is. It wasn't long before Iron Fan Immortal regained consciousness. Having used up all her demonic power, her hair had turned white and her face was haggard as if weathered by time. Of course, even so, she still looked like a noble lady. But exhausted beyond measure, she was lost in a daze, staring at the sky visible through the gaping hole. The hole was so large, spanning dozens of jang, that it was embarrassing to even call it a mountain anymore. But more than this, what made her feel truly dejected was Heavenly Demon's appearance. She had tried to cause a mutual destruction by exploding thousands of years' worth of accumulated demonic power, but she hadn't even singed a hair on his head, let alone his clothes. This is a being that even he couldn't handle if he came. Iron Fan Immortal had immense pride in her husband. Wasn't he the one whom even the ancient immortals couldn't defeat and had to join forces to seal? But this man's strength was truly transcendental. Even if her husband transformed into his true form and used the great demon-subduing treasure, the plant and leaf fan, could he really handle this monster? No matter how she thought about it, she couldn't picture such a scenario. Basil, what wife, what mother would sell out her husband and child? Just kill me instead. She had no intention of surrendering. She was simply worried about them facing this monster more than she feared death. Step. As Heavenly Demon approached, she took a deep breath, exhaled, and closed her eyes, resigned to death. Then Heavenly Demon's hand touched her head. Is this how I'll be annihilated? But then, you keep your mouth shut well. I'll acknowledge that maternal love. At these words from Heavenly Demon, she didn't budge. She thought there was no way someone targeting her child would show mercy like this. So she responded strongly. Then kill me without dishonoring me. No, I can't do that. What? She frowned and opened her eyes. Heavenly Demon bent down and whispered in her ear. As it happens, there are many vacancies for spirit servants. What is this bastard saying now? Spirit servants? Is he talking about how diviners and Taoists form connections with and control our kind? Is he saying he'll do to me what only lower-ranking demons suffer? Realizing this, her eyes widened in shock. But Heavenly Demon formed a hand seal with his left hand and said with a smile full of malice. Let's see how well Hong Hei listens to her mother. Chapter 497.12, A Side Story 4 Part 1. Madman 1. Arg. Heavenly Demon was secretly impressed by Iron Fan Immortal's resistance. Despite forming a connection, she was enduring like the great spirit beast she was, having lived for thousands of years. Not only had his power increased compared to a year ago, but his spell power had also grown to the point where it could be said to surpass that of a divine-level diviner. Yet she was resisting his spell power with desperate will. She was truly worthy of being a great spirit beast comparable to the 6 demons. Until now, only 2 of the 6 divine-level diviners had taken spirit beasts of king level as spirit servants. The will of spirit kings was on a completely different level from ordinary lesser demons. However, thud. Eventually, the exhausted Iron Fan Immortal collapsed to the floor, her eyes glazing over. It's done. At last her will had shattered and she had submitted. Heavenly Demon addressed Iron Fan Immortal, whose face was haggard and eyes unfocused. Iron Fan Immortal. Yes, master. Though she couldn't properly raise her body due to exhausting her demonic power and mental strength to the extreme, Iron Fan Immortal tried to show proper etiquette towards Heavenly Demon, seemingly having developed a will to obey. At this sight, the corners of Heavenly Demon's mouth turned up. He hadn't particularly desired to take a spirit king as a spirit servant, but taking a great spirit beast comparable to the 6 demons as a spirit servant would be shocking to diviners if they found out. Whoosh. Since he had completely made her his spirit servant, there was no need to keep her in an exhausted state, so Heavenly Demon returned some of her demonic power that he had left aside. As he injected the demonic power, vitality gradually returned to her haggard face. Once her breathing had somewhat stabilized, Heavenly Demon asked, "Do you know where Hong Hei is?" At this question, her complexion fluctuated between red and blue as her expression quickly twisted, but unable to overcome his dominance, her eyes soon glazed over and she opened her mouth. "I know the child's former dwelling." Former dwelling? Yes. Where is that? It was in a cave called Wan Cave in Gusongan of Diamond Head Mountain. So he's not there now. Wan Cave is not far from here, but in the past the stone monkey destroyed the cave so it no longer exists. Stone monkey. You mean Sun Wukong? That's right. Heavenly Demon remembered what the diviner Yeosuren had told him about the ancient texts. She had said that in the past, that stone monkey Sun Wukong had opposed not only the great strength king but Hong Hei as well. Then it seemed Wan Cave wasn't the lava cave. Do you know where the lava cave is? Lava cave. Hong Hei told the golden nine-tailed fox to bring him there. Don't you know where that is? At Heavenly Demon's question, Iron Fan Immortal frowned and hesitated for a moment. Does she know something? Heavenly Demon pressed her will strongly and asked. Is there somewhere you suspect the lava cave might be? I'm not certain where the lava cave is, but when that child returned, he spoke of an unquenchable flame. Seeing her struggle to part her lips, Heavenly Demon clicked his tongue. Maternal love was certainly something remarkable. However, once a connection was formed, it was ultimately impossible to refuse. What's this unquenchable flame? And answer me, Iron Fan Immortal. Deep underground in a hidden part of Mount Tian, there's an unquenchable flame. He said he might have obtained the primal energy of a flame surpassing Samadhi true fire there. Mount Tian. A strange light flashed in Heavenly Demon's eyes. Mount Tian in Xinjiang. He remembered. Not because he knew the geography well but because it existed in his memories. It was a place with amazing scenery where desert, lush forests and eternal snow existed simultaneously. A long-forgotten memory surfaced. It was also the place where he had first descended to this world as the King of Demons. Several hours had passed. Something massive landed in the great hall of Plantain Leaf Peak, which had been blasted open. Thud. The being was a huge, bizarre monkey with a purple face covered in white fur. The giant monkey, wearing armor decorated with snake patterns, swept the surroundings with trembling white eyes and gnashed its teeth. Gur. What on earth happened here? He had come to protect her on the orders of his master, Hong Hei. At first, the monkey had found the order strange. Though not as much as the great strength king Iron Fan Immortal was still a great spirit beast who could easily match him. Unless the ancient immortals came, there should be no one who could do anything to her, so he thought the order was just out of concern for that fox girl. But this was an unexpected result. The great hall of Plantain Leaf Peak had become a scene of carnage, and the stench of lesser demons' blood filled the air. Roar. The enraged giant monkey let out a roar. With one roar, a storm-like pressure swept in all directions, threatening to collapse the already devastated great hall. Rumble, rumble, rumble. But someone stopped it. Please stop. White Ghost King. The giant monkey, no, the White Ghost King, unable to contain his anger, stopped roaring. His eyes fell on someone lying in a pool of blood. The one in human form was Ash-Faced Demon, the gray-haired spirit king who was one of Iron Fan Immortal's 3 heroes. Thud. 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 Recognizing him, the White Ghost King hurriedly ran over, lifted him up and demanded, "Tell me what happened here at once." Mount Tian in Xinjiang. In a cave within the vast mountain range covered in eternal snow and bitterly cold. A campfire crackled there and someone sat in front of it roasting jerky on a skewer. As the jerky turned golden brown, the figure lifted the skewer and removed the mask he was wearing, setting it down. The uniquely patterned mask, though made of hard material, was cracked and broken in several places. The figure bit into the jerky from the skewer. Munch munch. Blue eyes, a high nose bridge and quite an exotic face. It was Ma Arahayan, the right guardian of the heavenly demon divine cult. Ma Arahayan, hurriedly eating the jerky that steamed in the cold air, gulped down water from a leather pouch. Phew. Having satisfied his hunger, Ma Arahayan exhaled a long breath as if he'd survived, then sat in a meditative posture and began circulating his energy. As he circulated his energy, he recalled the situation from several hours ago. In his mind's eye, a middle-aged man with short grizzled beard unleashed a fierce saber technique towards him, and he countered it using defensive and sword techniques. He had received teachings about the sword from First Elder O Chionmu and his Lord Heavenly Demon for a year, gaining excellent swordsmanship skills. However, the opponent's saber technique was beyond imagination, and he was defeated in just 30 seconds. Clench. His fist tightened as he circulated his energy. Recalling their daily battles, he had been honing his sword techniques, but even after 2 weeks he had never lasted more than 30 seconds. Why was this happening when he was facing someone who wasn't even in their right mind? Unable to focus on circulating his energy, Ma Arehayan soon stopped and struck the ground with his fist. Thud. Father. The reason he had come here was to avenge his father. He had learned about his father's killer from the Holy Fire Priestess just a year ago. Yet he had only acted now because he wanted to avenge his father without anyone's help. Chapter 497.13, Side Story 4 Part 2. Madman 2. Right Guardian Ma Arehayan, subdued in just 10 moves, was shocked beyond measure. It was a kind of self-loathing. He knew that the 10 martial arts madman Cho Jin-guk was notorious as one of the 3 madmen, but public opinion wasn't as high as for the sword demon Jui, formerly known as the Mad Swordsman. Even so, he had prepared assuming Cho's martial arts would have become formidable, considering the time since he was last seen. However, the result was defeat in 7 moves. The sword chi at his neck seemed about to pierce his flesh at any moment. Father. Was he to die here without even avenging his father? As despair washed over him, Cho Jin-guk, who had been laughing madly while facing him moments ago, suddenly had an utterly cold expression as if sobering up. What? As Ma Arehayan wondered, Cho Jin-guk spoke. Who are you to enter this place? Frowning at his completely different tone, Ma Arehayan replied. Why do you think I came here? Cho Jin-guk snorted and answered. You're funny one. Answering a question with a question. I find it even funnier that you ask such a question now after we were just fighting. We were just fighting. At those words, Cho Jin-guk rolled his eyes and looked around. The traces of battle all around clearly showed they had been fighting fiercely just moments ago. Confirming this, Cho Jin-guk fell into thought briefly before speaking. Did you approach while I was seized by killing intent? Killing intent. Let's just say I was mad. So you were really insane when you were acting like a madman? At Ma Arehayan's words, a strange bitterness flashed in Cho Jin-guk's eyes. He gazed at the sunlight shining into the cave, then removed the sword chi from Ma Arehayan's neck and said, Whoever you are, leave while I'm in my right mind. Ma Arehayan's eyes trembled slightly at his attitude. The battle was decided, yet he suddenly came to his senses and was letting him go unharmed? Though it was a perfect chance to keep his life, anger welled up in Ma Arehayan along with the rising self-loathing. Who are you to decide whether I stay or go? Feeling the killing intent in his voice, Cho Jin-guk, who had removed his sword chi, raised his energy without releasing it. Then he raised one eyebrow, tilted his head and said, Did you come looking for me? Do you think I came all this way for no reason? Ha. At those words, Cho Jin-guk sighed and licked his lips as if they were dry. After staring at Ma Arehayan for a while, Cho Jin-guk finally spoke. I suppose I'm your enemy. Don't talk as if it's someone else's business. I never thought it was someone else's business. It's all my karma, something I brought upon myself. You brought it upon yourself. I don't know who you are, but judging by that level of killing intent, you must have lost family or someone precious while I was seized by killing intent. Otherwise, you wouldn't have come to such a remote place. At these words, Ma Arehayan, still exuding killing intent, removed his mask. Whoosh. As the mask came off, revealing blue eyes and exotic features, Cho Jin-guk's expression froze. You're a Westerner. No, a mixed blood. Do you remember nothing even seeing this face? Cho Jin-guk gave no answer to Ma Arehayan's question. It was an affirmative response. At his answer, Ma Arehayan felt a pain in his chest beyond anger. It was stranger for someone who indiscriminately killed people while mad to remember each person they killed, but he had hoped. He thought Cho might remember his father, Priest Mayera, since he was a Westerner. But his father wasn't in this bastard's memory. Clench. As Ma Arehayan gripped his sword, energy began circulating through his 8 extraordinary meridians. Sensing this, sword chi materialized on Cho Jin-guk's sword. Taking a sword stance, Cho Jin-guk said, I don't know who you are, but if you're related to those who died by my hand, I can apologize. That was an error caused by me. You can apologize? You speak carelessly with that gaping mouth. Ma Arehayan felt true hatred for this bastard. He spoke as if bestowing some small kindness by saying he could apologize, but it wasn't the attitude of someone who truly considered it his karma. But Ma Arehayan stomped his foot and thrust his sword at Cho Jin-guk. A whirlwind arose from the sword tip. It was the sword technique, chasing and turning sword, from the luminous star sword art, the unique martial art of his master Jin Yiren. Though he hadn't had the chance to learn it directly from his mentor since becoming the right guardian of the Heavenly Demon Divine Cult after the battle with demons, his lord, the leader of Heavenly Demon Divine Cult, had taught it to him when he said he was preparing for revenge. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. Cho Jin-guk's eyes widened as the sword energy came whirling in while he was in a stance. He realized it wasn't an ordinary sword technique but a peerless one. I have to end it here. Ma Arihayan was putting everything into the chasing and turning sword. Since the technique itself was a trump card, and he hadn't been able to use it intentionally when the bastard wasn't in his right mind, he thought Cho wouldn't be able to counter it. But right then, snap, clang. Though his range of motion was limited by the chains on his ankles, Cho Jin-guk stepped back about 5 paces and extended his sword. At that moment, something flew from the dark rear of the cave. They were 4 weapons: a saber, a sword, a spear, and a wheel. 10 martial arts second realm. 4 weapons emerge. Ma Arihayan's eyes widened at the sight. He had thought Cho wasn't an ordinary master since he defeated him in 7 moves. But could he be a profound realm master who had even surpassed the wall of walls? Clang clang clang. As Ma Arihayan marveled, the 4 weapons harmonized in 4 directions through energy control, tracing exquisite trajectories to block the chasing and turning sword. Each of the 4 weapons moved differently, as if 4 different weapon masters were demonstrating excellent combined techniques. What is this? It was reminiscent enough of his mentor Jin Yuren's unique martial art Wind Shadow 8 forms to perfectly utilize the strengths of 4 weapons. But unlike Wind Shadow 8 forms which directly created afterimages, these were deployed through energy control, making the changes even more unpredictable. Moreover, each move seemed imbued with tremendous killing intent, as if the martial art was created solely to kill opponents. Clang clang clang. Ugh. Though he tried to endure and push through somehow, the result was clang. Ma Arihayan's sword flew and lodged in the ceiling, while the 4 weapons floating through energy control aimed at his vital points. They seemed ready to pierce his body if he moved even slightly. In the end, Ma Arihayan had to accept his defeat, sinking into despair despite using his trump card. From the start, if his opponent was a profound realm master, there was bound to be a difference in their levels, so perhaps this was inevitable. Kill me. Ma Arihayan spoke, taunting him. Though frustrated at failing to take revenge, he had to accept the outcome of his defeat. But then, you're no ordinary skilled fighter. With that level of martial arts, you must be one of the greatest masters of this age. You may not accept it, but I'll apologize. You bastard. If I had completed the blood-killing chi technique, I could have fully controlled the killing intent. But failing to overcome it was strictly my fault. That's what I'm apologizing for. You speak as if you're apologizing for killing by mistake. That's exactly how you understood it. What? From the start, choosing to live in the martial world means choosing a life where death can come at any time. Do you see a big difference between deaths with reasons and those without? Gur. At his words, which were beyond absurd and utterly brazen, Ma Arihayan wanted to tear that mouth apart right then. But he had already been defeated, and he would die instantly if the bastard made even a small move. Perhaps knowing this, Cho Jin-guk continued. It's an era of survival of the fittest. Even if it was a mistake, I'm not weak-hearted enough to accept revenge for those who died because they were weak. No, it's even ridiculous to make excuses to the likes of you when I haven't even conquered the martial world yet. Conquer the martial world. Isn't it natural for a man born as a martial artist to dream of being the best under heaven? You too should have ambition instead of wasting time on revenge. I suppose that would be difficult too. Once I complete the blood-killing chi technique and leave this place, even ambition will be meaningless. Ha! Ma Arihayan was dumbfounded. Even when not insane, this man wasn't exactly a normal type of person. He was simply furious that his father had been killed by such a bastard. Then, but I've alleviated my boredom by meeting someone after a long time, so I'll show mercy as a reward for that. Leave. At his attitude of bestowing grace, Ma Arihayan burst out in anger. You're insulting me now. Snap. But before he could fully express his anger, he fell unconscious. When he came to, he was covered in cold snow outside the cave, seeming to have been unconscious for quite some time. Damn it. For a while after waking, he was too consumed by humiliation and anger to do anything. Only when he heard strange laughter from inside the cave, realizing the bastard had gone mad again, was he able to leave that place. Realizing he couldn't do anything about Cho right away, Ma Arihayan fell into deep thought for a while. The bastard was a profound realm master, an enemy he couldn't handle with his current skills. But he didn't know how long it would take to surpass the wall of walls by going back and honing his martial arts. And if the bastard completed his internal energy technique and left the cave as he said, there was no telling when or how they might meet again. I'll put aside my pride. In the end, Ma Arihayan decided to give up on killing the bastard in a fair fight. He thought the only answer was to target him when he was insane, since there was absolutely no chance of winning when he was lucid. At least when insane, though he mixed various martial arts, he didn't use that peerless energy control technique he had shown when lucid. So Ma Arihayan made a cave not far from there his dwelling and began to recall the martial arts the bastard had used, searching for ways to break them. Meanwhile, he went near the cave and calculated the times when the bastard was lucid and when he was insane. 3 hours. After observing for several days, he found that Cho wasn't in his right mind from about 5 a.m. to 9 a.m. He could tell just from the laughter coming from outside the cave. Ma Arihayan decided to target those 3 hours. After recalling the 7 moves and coming up with ways to counter them, he went to the cave in the middle of the 5 to 7 a.m. period and fought the insane Cho Jin-guk. However, he was defeated in just 10 moves. Damn it. No matter how many techniques the bastard had learned, their variety was so vast that even when insane he didn't repeat techniques much. To say how monstrous this was, it meant he had no habits or tells. Monster. This was the feeling Ma Arihayan had after fighting the insane bastard every day for 2 weeks. He had observed many talented individuals up close, but this was a completely different level of monster, no genius. Was there really no way to deal with this bastard? Even after 2 weeks he could only last about 30 moves. Could he bridge that gap just by mentally reviewing ways to break the techniques? Finally, Ma Arihayan stopped his energy circulation midway, overwhelmed by growing frustrations. If he kept sinking into distracting thoughts, he might fall into chi deviation. If he couldn't even match the bastard in his insane state, defeating him when lucid might be as impossible as facing his lord. As Ma Arihayan wallowed in self-loathing, he soon sat in meditation posture again and composed himself. No. I can't give up like this. No matter how strong the opponent, giving up meant giving up on avenging his father. That would be the same as truly submitting to the bastard. Even if it took time, if he could somehow grasp all of the bastard's techniques, there might be a chance. Have patience. As Ma Arihayan was about to mentally review his battles with the bastard again. Plang. He opened his eyes at the sound of footsteps ringing in his ears. The eyes visible through the gaps in Ma Arihayan's mask trembled. He saw a figure silhouetted against the light at the cave entrance, and with each step, the chains on his ankles clashed against the ground, making a metallic sound. It was none other than Cho Jin-guk. Plang. As he approached, red light emanating from his eyes, he spoke. Your dedication in targeting only my insane times was truly admirable. So I decided I must show you first when I complete my internal energy technique. The tremendous killing intent in his voice. It was utterly ominous. He completed it? Feeling pressured by the bastard's approach with such a vicious aura, as if he had been waiting for this moment, Ma Arihayan hurriedly tried to get to his feet. But before he could, another voice echoed through the cave. So this is why your vacation was extended, right, Guardian? It was coming from behind Cho Jin-guk. Cho Jin-guk, who had been approaching Ma Arihayan, shook his head and muttered. I see you had a companion. How unfortunate. Before he could finish speaking, bang. Cho Jin-guk's body was slammed into the cave wall. Chapter 497.14, Side Story 4 Part 3. Madman 3. The 10 martial arts madman Cho Jin-guk. Though now stained with infamy, he was originally born in Gansu province and renowned as the 10 weapons prodigy, the head of the prestigious martial arts family Cho of Jinchang. While most martial arts families focused on unarmed combat and mastering a single weapon, their family had excelled in many weapons for generations. The Jinchang Cho family, possessing excellent martial arts in saber, spear, sword, halberd, staff, fist, palm, leg, finger and claw techniques, had firmly established their power to the point where they were known to have no rivals in Gansu province. However, this renowned Jinchang Cho family never clashed or interacted with other sects, so as time passed, many martial artists in Gansu began to doubt their skills. They're said to be excellent, but has anyone actually seen them compete? Isn't this just an exaggerated rumor? Is it even possible to be proficient in 10 weapons in the first place? It could be possible. If they're all mediocre. Ah, that makes sense. Such rumors began to be accepted as fact at some point. The Jinchang Cho family was also aware of this. However, they didn't make any big moves despite the outside skepticism and ridicule. But someone appeared who couldn't stand it and broke this pattern. That person was Cho Jin-guk. Generally, it takes a long time to master even one weapon, but most martial artists of the Jinchang Cho family were talented enough to master 5 or 6. Among them, Cho Jin-guk was known as a genius who had mastered all the martial arts of the Jinchang Cho family in just over 200 years. With his innate talent, he didn't stop there but developed the family's martial arts and even created new ones, showing qualities of a great grandmaster. This outstanding talent led him to change even the long-standing rules of the family. The retired patriarch Cho Moon-hyung asked, "Do you really want to step forward even if it means changing the family rules? Long ago, our ancestors established such rules because they couldn't control the killing nature. But haven't we overcome this with the steadfast mind anchor now? Though no major problems have occurred yet, it's not perfect. Then how long do you intend to be bound by the family rules? Will you keep hearing that we can't fulfill our role as a martial arts family because of the innate tendency passed down for generations? As men born, no, as martial artists who have cultivated martial arts, shouldn't we rule over the world? Rule over the world." Thus, he persuaded the retired patriarch and family members, amended the family rules for the first time in hundreds of years, and declared their advancement to the outside world. With great ambition, he subdued all the martial artists in Gansu province in just a month to claim the title of the world's strongest, then advanced to Sichuan province in the south. Before long, he achieved the feat of defeating and subjugating the strongest masters of over 10 small and medium-sized sects. Filled with confidence, his next targets were the major sects called Qingqing sect, Sichuan Tang family and Amei sect. These 3 groups could be called the major orthodox sects representing Sichuan and belonging to the Righteous Alliance. If he could defeat them, it would prove that the Jinchang Cho family had become a force capable of subjugating even major sects. Should I choose the Qingqing swordsman, Wan Jin Sokja, Qingqing sect's best swordsman, or Tang In-hei, the rising supermaster of the Tang family known as Thousand Poison Hand? After deliberation, he chose the Sichuan Tang family, one of the 7 great families. Despite being a prestigious martial arts family, the Jinchang Cho family wasn't included in the 7 great families, so he intended to show that this structure was wrong. But here a variable arose. Before he could even reach the Sichuan Tang family, his ambition was thwarted by an unknown being. "Are you the 10 weapons prodigy?" This person had a body developed to the extreme, more than any martial artist he had ever seen. Feeling a strange competitive spirit towards him, from whom he couldn't sense any energy even with his chi sense, Cho Jin-guk engaged in a fight, but bang 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 bang. What the hell is this guy? Despite giving it his all for dozens of seconds, he couldn't inflict any damage on this monster. He had never heard of or seen such a monster in Sichuan province. It was a shock for him, who thought he had come infinitely close to being the world's strongest after mastering the supreme techniques of the 10 weapons. Damn it. A technique is a method to subdue or kill an opponent most efficiently. But if it doesn't work from the start, it's useless. I can't handle this monster with conventional methods. Then I need to pierce through that seemingly indestructible body, but how can one wound a body that even internal energy can't affect? Then it's only possible by refining the internal energy more minutely or exerting power beyond that. Suddenly, something flashed through Cho Jin-guk's mind. No. That's not it. The curse of the family passed down since the ancestors' time. It was that their bloodline was born with a killing nature for generations. This wasn't simply having strong killing intent. Those seized by the killing nature could exert transcendent power through the killing intent inherent in their blood. But there was a problem here. Once seized by killing intent, they couldn't control it and had to kill someone to calm it down. Because of this, their ancestors, seized by the killing nature, ended up killing many people, and believing they couldn't control it, they forbade their descendants from interacting or competing with other martial artists. As time passed, the descendants of the Jinchang Cho family devised numerous methods to control the killing nature, and the steadfast mind anchor, which almost perfectly suppressed it, was the result. The steadfast mind anchor was a mind technique that calmed the mind and suppressed the killing heart, allowing the descendants of the Jinchang Cho family to no longer be seized by killing intent. However, Cho Jin-guk, sensing the crisis of defeat, thought of a method he shouldn't have. If I could only control the power of the killing nature, he might be able to pierce through those thick muscles as hard as Vajra. As he was contemplating this choice he shouldn't make, his opponent approached, emitting steam-like vapor from his entire body. Cho Jin-guk shouted at him. "Why have you blocked my way? You're not asking because you don't know, right? What? You've stirred up quite a commotion in the Sichuan martial world. Do you want to conquer the world or something?" At this question Cho Jin-guk snorted as if dumbfounded. "Is that not allowed? There's nothing that can't be done. Then are you also trying to conquer the world?" "No. I'm just trying to prevent a crisis for a certain family following someone's will." "A certain family? What on earth is he talking about?" As Cho Jin-guk wondered, the opponent approached him step by step and said, "I was going to let you go since it didn't seem worth worrying about, but what's contained inside you can't be overlooked." What the opponent pointed to was Cho Jin-guk's chest. At these words, Cho Jin-guk's eyes took on a strange light. Could this person have sensed that inherent in his family's bloodline? Cho Jin-guk straightened his posture, took a stance and asked, "The world is truly vast. I thought no one could match me, but you're the first peerless master I've met. What's your name? Is that important?" I need to remember it." Mujik. Mujik, invincible? Is this really his name? It was far too arrogant to be a name and he had never heard it before. He seemed to be a reclusive eccentric. However, what mattered wasn't names or fame anyway. Cho Jin-guk, in his stance, slowly regulated his breathing and stopped the energy circulation method of the steadfast mind anchor, which he had built as a foundation and always maintained. Then, whoosh. Suddenly, a dark red energy rose like a mirage from his body, and even his eyes became bloodshot. At this ominous aura full of killing intent, the man who called himself Mujik's eyes sharpened. Thus, having released the killing nature he had suppressed for so long, he fought Mujik again. And when he came to his senses, he woke up in a doctor's place with all the bones in his body shattered and his muscles twisted. Upon waking, he couldn't bear this first defeat he had ever experienced. Barg. Defeat and a terribly damaged body. Everything made him despair. His dantian was intact, but with all his muscles twisted and every bone in his body shattered into pieces, what could he do when he couldn't even move? He was now practically crippled. For nearly 2 weeks he barely ate or drank in shock and agony. But then something amazing happened. How is this possible? The doctor caring for him spoke the results of his pulse diagnosis as if he couldn't believe it. In just 2 weeks, half of his shattered bones had reattached, and his twisted muscles were gradually returning to their original positions. This was great news for him who had been unable to move, unable to even budge. However, despite this good news, he was consumed by revenge rather than joy. Unforgivable. He was enraged that his ambition to rule the world with his superior martial arts had been shattered by an unknown eccentric whose name wasn't even known. And that anger eventually led to endless killing intent. The killing nature in his bloodline, which had been closed for a long time as he maintained the steadfast mind anchor, had awakened. 5 days passed, and with his abnormal recovery ability, his bones had completely reattached and his twisted muscles had found their place. But, why are you doing this? Please just spare my life, Ak. Seized by unstoppable killing intent during his energy circulation, he killed the doctor and all the patients there before leaving. Initially, he hadn't intended to kill the doctor, but sensing that his killing nature had gone berserk from what he had done, he tried to control it by using the steadfast mind anchor again. However, once out of control, the killing intent could no longer be regulated at will with just the steadfast mind anchor. No. At this rate, I'll just be dragged around by the killing nature. Knowing that if he couldn't control the killing nature, he would inevitably degenerate into a crazy murderer like his ancestors, he decided to use his outstanding talent to create a new internal energy technique to control it. While his ancestors had only suppressed it until now. Let's sublimate the killing nature into martial arts. The killing nature inherent in their bloodline possessed transcendent power, so it was too precious to simply give up. And to rule the world and face that man, he needed to make this power completely his own. Despite this resolution, he didn't return to his family. It was to avoid a situation where he might harm his family members if he went berserk or be abandoned by them. Let's go somewhere with few people. The place he chose was Mount Tian, a remote area covered in snow all year round. He thought that in this place full of cold no one would live, so few would come looking and he wouldn't clash with anyone. Or so he thought. However, contrary to his expectations, Mount Tian was a pilgrimage site for a religious group. They were the Fire Faith Order believers. Unfortunately, Cho Jin-guk encountered them just as his killing nature was going berserk and indiscriminately killed the Fire Faith Order believers. And not content with that, he even killed all the people in a nearby village not far from Mount Tian. Realizing that it was harder to control the killing nature just by avoiding people than he had expected, Cho Jin-guk decided this wouldn't do. So, believing that confining himself was the only answer, he found a strange mineral that wouldn't break even under internal energy and absorbed that energy, made chains from it and restrained himself. Thus, after a long time passed, he finally created a new internal energy technique to completely control the killing nature and utilize its power with his innate talent worthy of a great grandmaster. That was the blood-killing chi technique. After completing the technique, he was confident. Having completed the supreme martial art 10 martial ways, which could handle 10 weapons at once through energy control, and the blood-killing chi technique, now no one could match him. Now he just needed to return to the martial world, deal with the one who first defeated him long ago and conquer the world. Of course, there was something to resolve first. That mixed blood bastard. He had shown mercy because the guy was related to his past mistakes, but the bastard had tried to kill him by targeting only when he was mad, seized by killing nature while cultivating his new technique. Every time he came to his senses, he had been greatly annoyed by the remaining traces of battle from the bastard. So he was going to kill him first before leaving, but... I see you had a companion. How unfortunate. Bang. Cho Jin-guk, whose body was suddenly slammed into the cave wall, couldn't hide his bewilderment for a moment. What on earth is going on? He had just completed his technique, and his whole body's chi sense had become extremely sensitive. Yet he hadn't even perceived someone approaching before being slammed into the wall by an overwhelming force. Gur. Whoever it was, he could tell clearly from this one strike. This was no ordinary master. At least an equal or even superior. So, to widen the gap, he needed to use the blood-killing chi technique in one go. During his seclusion in the cave, he hadn't just spent time controlling the killing nature. In the process of creating a martial art to harmonize the 10 weapons, he had completed the 10 martial ways and surpassed the wall of walls. He had reached the profound realm, a realm only the pinnacles of the martial world approached. If the profound internal energy of the profound realm combined with the blood-killing chi technique, that power could be called the world's strongest without exaggeration. Boom 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 boom. Cho Jin-guk, who had raised his power to the maximum in one breath, escaped from the wall. As he emerged and used the blood-killing chi technique, dark red energy surged from his entire body, dyeing the surroundings ominously. Girl. Whoever you are, you'll regret opposing me who has completed the blood-killing chi technique. Cho Jin-guk's eyebrow raised. His killing intent-infused energy filled the entire cave and even pressed down on the air, but the opponent wasn't even showing wariness, let alone turning around. Someone who had approached Ma Arihayan with his hands behind his back opened his mouth. You look terrible. My lord. Whoosh. Ma Arihayan clasped his hands together and knelt on one knee, showing respect towards him. At their behavior. Gur. Cho Jin-guk's expression twisted fiercely. How dare they not only turn their back to him but not even show wariness. He would show them what a great price such arrogance would bring. 10 martial ways, third realm, 6 weapons emerge. As Cho Jin-guk swung his sword, raising the blood-killing energy that materialized his killing intent, 6 weapons covered in dark red internal energy flew in from outside the cave. The weapons that flew in aimed at the target Cho Jin-guk pointed his sword at. That target was the someone standing with his hands behind his back. But then, woong woong woong. The 6 weapons that were flying with enough force to pierce through that someone in one go suddenly stopped in midair. Cho Jin-guk's expression, who had maximized his power by even raising the blood-killing energy, froze. He tried to raise the blood-killing energy even more, attempting to move the weapons somehow to unleash the techniques of the 10 martial ways energy control. However, before he could, the weapons that had stopped in midair crumbled and scattered into dust. What on earth? As he was bewildered, Ma Arahayan, who had been showing respect, raised his head and spoke. Cho Jin-guk, you said you could conquer the martial world. When he had said that, Ma Arahayan had inwardly sneered. The reason was simple. You dreamed a dream that you can't achieve even in death. What? The one you're looking at is my lord, the heavenly demon, the current pinnacle of the martial world. Pinnacle? This guy is the current pinnacle of the martial world? For a moment, Cho Jin-guk's expression went blank before his eyes sharpened. And for good reason, as this was truly a fortuitous coincidence. On the very day he overcame the curse of the killing nature and completed the blood-killing chi technique, the one called the current pinnacle of the martial world appeared right before him. This was an opportunity bestowed by heavenly fortune. Without needing to defeat countless others, if he could subdue just this one person, it would be no different from conquering the world. Girl. Cho Jin-guk, filled with fighting spirit, raised his blood-killing energy to the extreme in one go, something he had never done above 60% since completing his technique. The surging dark red energy filled the cave and began to press down on all directions. With tremendous wind pressure, even the walls began to crack from the aftermath. Crack, crack, crack. It was truly enormous power. But then, how annoying. With those words, Heavenly Demon raised his hand to shoulder height and made a gesture of clenching his fist. At that very moment, rumble, rumble, rumble. Suddenly, as if an earthquake had occurred, the entire cave shook violently. Then Cho Jin-guk's field of view distorted, the space rippled, and, whoosh. All the dark red energy that had filled the entire cave converged to a single point, compressed into the form of a small sphere. The sight was so astonishing that Cho Jin-guk's mouth had fallen open before he knew it. How did he do that to the materialized blood-killing energy? Then Heavenly Demon slightly turned his head, lightly flicked his finger towards the sphere and said, "Take it back." Boom. It was the moment Heavenly Demon's finger touched it. The compressed sphere split the air and pierced straight through the center of Cho Jin-guk's chest. Thud. Gah. With a dying scream, the staggering Cho Jin-guk looked down at his pierced chest with eyes widened to the point of tearing.